welcome to EVTN News. And today I have a few stories. Actually, most of these stories are about the Latin Mass. So let's just jump right into it. Oh, also, I think was it last week or the week before, whenever the supposed end date for the Latin Mass was, and I said, I don't know, I don't think I buy it, and it didn't happen. That doesn't mean I can predict everything correctly, but in this case, it didn't seem like that's the way things were heading, and they didn't, which was probably good for diocesan Latin masses. But I'm going to talk about this news and then sort of give some analysis. Um, yes. Oh, good. Okay, my internet keeps cutting out, so hopefully I can get through most of these stories, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. The former Archbishop of Guadalajara, Mexico's Cardinal Juan Sandoval Iniguez has joined his voice to those of many others petitioning Pope Francis not to allow further restrictions on the traditional Mass. Sandoval stated that it cannot be bad what the Church has celebrated for centuries, the Mass of St. Pius V in Latin, with a rich and pious liturgy that invites us to enter into the mystery of God. So Cardinal Sandoval is supportive of traditionalists, so that's always good to have a cardinal who supports that. So good job on him. I actually have a few stories about Virginia. So the first one, all diocesan traditional Latin masses have been suppressed in the Diocese of Richmond, Virginia due to the Vatican's restrictions per Traditionis Custodes after the expiration of a 2-year indult from Rome. The Latin Mass Directory website announced as of July 5th, the diocese implemented Pope Francis' motu proprio Traditionis Custodes, according to which bishops are not to allow traditional Latin masses in parochial churches. While LifeSite previously reported that the Latin Mass of Holy Comforter Catholic Church in Charlottesville would end, the more recent announcement clarifies that 2 other Latin Masses at St. Joseph in Petersburg and All Saints in Floyd have also ceased. Bishop Barry Nestout declared, Nestout is a former secretary of McCarrick, by the way. He had declared in a June 21st letter to the pastor of Holy Comforter Catholic Church that he wished to renew a request for a dispensation for the Latin Mass, but was unsure if this request would be granted. The bishop also expressed his confidence that the pastor would lead the faithful toward the Novus Ordo as the unique expression of the lex orandi of the Roman Rite, citing Traditionis Custodes. And when a Catholic pope completely reverses that, what is the bishop going to do? Because the Latin Mass is the sole expression of the Roman Rite. And they're not going to take it away from us. They're not. So there's that. Now, apparently there is, I think, an FSSP parish somewhere in the Diocese of Richmond, Virginia. So they're not completely without Latin Masses. And actually, that's an important thought to hold for these in a few minutes here after this next story. Just keep that in mind. So with this, in Switzerland, a heterodox Swiss Catholic lay organization has published a list of parishes that offer blessings for LMNOP couples and others in objectively sinful. Alliance Equally Catholic individuals, organizations, and parishes, and other associations that share the vision of an equal Catholic Church, whatever that means, probably Anglicans. The list, which will be continuously updated, currently contains more than 20 Swiss parishes and almost 40 pastors who offer blessings for LMNO. However, the pastors listed by the heterodox group are almost exclusively parishes. So I don't know if these are Protestant churches or fake Catholic churches or fake Catholics or whatever. And of course, the blessings, therefore, would be fake. So, I'm trying to rush through my stories here. because I'm not sure about the status of the internet. It already disconnected once, so I'll do the best I can, and hopefully I can articulate this information. So, I'm moving on to Arlington, Virginia. I think Gloria TV confused it with Arlington, Texas, which is not very close. I mean, it's halfway across the country. But in Arlington, so the Vatican, and there's a follow up story to this one I'm going to read. So it's a two parter. Um, but after this first story, I want to give my analysis though. So the Vatican has granted a 2-year extension to the permission to offer the traditional Latin Mass in 3 diocesan churches in the Diocese of Arlington, Virginia, as announced in an email from the Diocesan Vicar General. So the quote is, at the request and recommendation of Bishop Michael Burbidge, the Dicastery for Divine Worship and Discipline of Sacraments granted a 2-year extension to their permission for Mass to be celebrated according to the 1962 Roman Missal in the parish churches. There's 3 parish churches. So this was shared on a Facebook group. Now, of course, the Francis Vatican, I guess, denied the request in Virginia, but Arlington doesn't have an FSSP or Institute parish there, and so it seems as though the Vatican is granting extensions to locations, dioceses where they don't have an FSSP or Institute of Christ the King parish. Where they have, it's an Ecclesia Dei community, I guess you would call it. But in a diocese where there is an Ecclesia Dei community, then it seems as though the Vatican is crushing all the other masses, diocesan masses. So I mean, any attempt to crush the Mass or the sacraments is an offense against divine law. So it's particularly discouraging in that regard that the bishops are really turning their backs to the Catholic faith and the faithful. But we'll survive, and we've had many bad bishops in the past, and unfortunately it doesn't seem as though that's likely to change anytime soon. And apparently, I don't know what's happening here. Apparently my laptop closed out the page I had up, so thanks for that. I think it's the government spying. Okay, I don't know what this is doing. It's going kind of crazy. So, the follow-up to this Arlington, the Arlington news. So Arlington was the diocese that had no Ecclesia Dei parishes, and so they just had a collection of diocesan Latin masses. Diocesan Latin masses are in a particular risk to be shut down regardless. Although it seems like some of them, again, it seems like some of them will remain around longer than maybe we expected. So the 2-year extension has indeed been granted, but there is a clip that was shown on Facebook of not a clip, but a segment of an article. So Burbidge, he closed 13 out of 21 Latin masses in his diocese, and there is a requirement added by the Vatican's dicastery that the churches where the Mass is still celebrated, the Novus Ordo must be used once a month instead of the Latin Mass. So it says, the dicastery suggests that once a month in place of one of the Masses usually celebrated in the Usus Antiquior, Mass be celebrated in Latin using the Missale Romanum of 2008. Bishop Burbidge has accepted this proposal, which will solely pertain to the 3 parish churches listed above. So I don't know. It's basically like Cardinal Supich's is it, Cardinal Supich's restrictions against the Latin Mass, and that's being implemented in Arlington. So this is, I don't know if this is an experimental trial or a sign of things to come, but Supich, Supich implemented this, and he forced the Institute of Christ the King to follow it, but they didn't. And so he removed their faculties. And so now, on the first Sunday of every month, the SSPX is the only place in the Archdiocese of Chicago where you can go to the Latin Mass. So, sad to see, but the SSPX will certainly grow because of it. They're resisting an evil man, a very evil man. Francis is an evil man, of course, as well, and so he must be resisted, especially with unjust restrictions like this. But in Arlington, that's hard to, it's going to be hard to find. I think there's an SSPX parish there, and so that's a very, very accessible place to go. And that's it. But yeah, diocesan masses. So if they're not crushed completely, then I think the bishops are going to kind of experiment with restrictions, which is kind of sad to see. But again, you have to find an alternative, whether it's Eastern Rite or don't go to that really, really reverent Novus Ordo that they're going to have instead of the Latin Mass. I mean, people even said, like, just go to your local Novus Ordo if you don't have any other options. Just go to your local Novus Ordo because you're saving on gas money. You're not pretending. I mean, you're not play acting. I don't know. It's just it's pretty sad. So, and that's the same with St. John Cantius in Chicago. It's unacceptable, honestly. Why did I use the word honestly? I'm not the best speaker in the world, but it's unacceptable. I guess there's nothing else to say. Okay, so I think the Institute of Christ the King had a church or a mission or a chapel crushed. This is actually off. I don't have the article linked here, but it's on Gloria TV. So the Institute of Christ the King was kicked out of historic St. Mary Church in Wigan, in the Archdiocese of Liverpool, England. So there was a priest who retired for health reasons at the end of 2023. So actually fairly recently, and the Archbishop invited the Institute of Christ the King to take over the church, and that came to an abrupt end on July 7th. Sorry, the priest of the Institute of Christ the King said he had been told the day before that it would be the final Mass. So that's accompaniment, and that's accompaniment in the synodal church. The Institute had offered to buy the church and a house for the priest to live in, but the offer had been rejected by the trustees of the Archdiocese. And that was that. So the church will fall into disrepair and probably be sold to Buddhists or Mohammedans, or probably not Protestants. I mean, I'm sure they would sell it to Protestants, but definitely not the SSPX. There's another article I noticed. Oh boy. I think it was, well, I think it was about nope, I guess they took it down. I thought it was about the Legionaries of Christ, but oh, there it is. I see it. Yeah, it's pretty gross. It's about Maciel and how the Vatican knew about him, and yeah. Oh, I didn't read this. Okay, but this is the first time I'm reading this. It's on Gloria TV. So the rumors about the document against the Latin Mass that wasn't published. So such a document in the form of an apostolic constitution has been in the Vatican's drawers since late 2021. Francis was supposed to sign it in February 2022, but he refused. Cardinal Roche, the head of the Dicastery for Liturgy, who presented the document to Francis, fell out of favor with the tyrant. Francis has not received Roche personally since. Cardinal Roche is not a skillful person, let alone an intelligent one, but a person who has a habit of screwing up every project and every organization. I mean, I don't think Francis or Roche are particularly likable, but Cardinal Roche ended up in Rome because in just 3 years as Bishop of Leeds, England, he had caused all kinds of chaos, including financial. Although the diocese is wealthy, Cardinal Nichols asked Benedict XVI to remove Roche from England, and Benedict had no better idea than to make him secretary of the Congregation for Liturgy. Yeah, so in the Vatican II Church, a promotion is a demotion, or a demotion is a promotion. Yeah, wrap your head around that, but that's how it is in the Vatican II Church. They don't actually fire people. They just give them a promotion. The second reason for Francis' disdain for Roche is that Roche's manifesto Traditionis Custodes caused Francis a lot of headaches, especially as the Latin Mass movement continues to grow. Francis didn't sign the document because liturgy is not his main focus, and he is very careful not to make any martyrs. Although we're victims, I mean, there's no question that traditionalists are victims of the Francis Church. Roche's dicastery is divided. Roche's main opponent is Archbishop Vittorio Viola, secretary of the dicastery and desperate to get the cardinals purple. Now, I think they're both evil men, Roche and Viola. I don't think they're good. I think they're both evil men, but of course, I think what happens a lot is if you don't have, like, if you're not united for the common cause, like I don't think they're both on the Francis Church. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but it seems as though like evil men form alliances sometimes, but a lot of times those alliances fall apart. Anyway, speaking of Viola, the new attack on the Mass was launched by Monsignor Viola and not by Cardinal Roche. It has been neutralized for the time being. Requests for the Mass from many bishops, priests, faithful, and personalities of the world have reached Francis's desk and seem to have an effect. I mean, he realizes that any more, crushing more masses just makes him increasingly unpopular. Although Francis isn't popular amongst Catholics in any regard. So I don't know. It seems like there's a real power struggle in the department amongst the people who hate the Mass, and they're trying to use it to rise up the ranks, and I don't know. But that was interesting. That's on Gloria TV if you want to see the article. The title is Rumors and Facts about the document against Holy Mass that wasn't published. So that's what it is. Oh, and a new article here as well. The SSPX in Bogota, Colombia, organized a pilgrimage to the Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary in Chiquinquirá on July 21st. Bishop Luis Sanchez Aponte, 77, has authorized the pilgrimage for the second year in a row. The large church is one of Colombia's most important sanctuaries. Yes. So I think this was a diocesan church, it looks like, but it was authorized for an SSPX pilgrimage. So that's really nice. That's pretty good. There are 2 SSPX chapels east and west of Arlington, Virginia, and there is a seminary in Dillwyn, Virginia, about 4 hours away. Oh, that's 4 hours? Okay. The St. Thomas Aquinas Seminary. Yeah, and in this area, But especially in the Diocese of Richmond, Virginia, you can go to an SSPX Mass. The priest, if Latin Mass faithful organize a group, then the priests will accommodate them because they have plenty of priests at the seminary. New Cathedral style church, Christendom College. They have a Latin ordinary form Mass. It's not the Latin Mass though. That's the whole point. I mean, I've watched Latin Novus Ordo, and can't say I was really impressed. I think the one I watched, they had female Eucharistic ministers. So I mean, it's clearly not. It's clearly still watered down Catholicism. So yeah, that's neat stuff. Okay. I don't want to talk about the legionaries of Christ. Maciel. What a sicko. I think you can probably find out that stuff on your own. Although the perv stuff, it needs to come to light. Again, I've repeated a lot, but we still have the same amount of information about McCarrick that we did in 2018. Who knew what? Who did McCarrick help advance up the ranks? Was it Supich, Tobin, McElroy, Worrell? Were those guys involved? Did McCarrick help them advance up the ranks? Because that's what Vigano says. Reverent Novus Ordo means a regular Novus Ordo isn't reverent. Yeah, you have to qualify it. But at the same time, find an Eastern Rite alternative, like form a community if you need to. Like do something within your means. You can do it. You can easily do it. Not easily, but you can do it. Find a group. Do what you need to do. Because right now it looks like the masses are going to get, some of them are going to get crushed. Some of them are going to get slowly squeezed out. That's the goal. That's the goal of the modernists, is to crush reverence. Remember, there are bishops who have banned ad orientem novus ordos. Why would they do that? If a priest wants to say the Novus Ordo ad orientem, why? Is it because the mass itself was created to be irreverent? I don't know, but they're banning it. They don't want any reverence. They don't even want reverence in the Novus Ordo. So find an alternative. Do what you can. Do your best. The SSPX isn't really going to be setting up a whole lot of new chapels unless a lot of the people come together as a group, which is unlikely because they have a waiting list and they don't have enough priests to staff all these places. But do what you can. I think that's it. I'm really glad my internet didn't cut out. And there's some really late breaking news there. And I didn't cite all my sources, but you can find it all at Gloria TV. Take a look. I like to cite my sources in the description, and most of them are cited, but Gloria TV, and I'm sure LifeSite News will carry some of these stories as well, but they're usually like a day later than Gloria TV, because Gloria TV doesn't really, what would I say? They don't link their sources. They just copy and paste sometimes. Sometimes they'll cite like the place where it was published, so they'll say, okay, this was published on Catholic News Agency, but they won't link the article for you to see it yourself. It's kind of sneaky, but I think they get away with it because of what country they're in. But it's okay. And I'm okay with it because I get the news. That's where news is news before it's news, and I don't have access to Twitter at work, so although Twitter has just become political, And if you want your safe space, you can come onto John the Son of Thunder channel, and I don't think there will be any any political candidates who identify as Catholic. I don't think that's not necessarily true. I think J.D. Vance identifies as Catholic, but I'm really not going to talk about. I'm really not going to try to talk about politics very much. I don't want to talk about politics. I don't really want to talk about Pope Francis, or at least the quotes that he says, or really the interviews that he gives, unless there's something that's particularly egregious, which happens all the time anyway. So I want to try to purge that negativity. I mean, the news stories that I talk about enough are negative enough. The news stories that I talk about are negative enough that I don't need more negativity by, interpreting what Francis says. So anyway, I'd like to see some success stories, some positive news for once, but negativity is what drives headlines, right? Because if now I don't have I don't have the theological background to go over, say, the Baltimore Catechism. I mean, I can read it, but I don't know that I could really discuss it a whole lot in depth. But if I were to say I did do that, and I had the background to do that, Baltimore Catechism lessons would get less views than if I posted something about Vigano. And that's just how it works, unfortunately. Negativity sells, and that's why, Michael Lofton, that's another one I said I'd never mention. That's why his channel seems to get a lot of views, because he criticizes people all the time. And yeah, I mean, negativity, and he doesn't get a lot of views, but he gets a lot of people that are looking for negativity. And yeah, even like a lot of the news outlets, they always have to find something. Like Church Militant was really really big on that, really big on the negativity, and eventually that became their downfall. But the news is just overall generally slanted towards negativity. But I'd like some positive news stories every once in a while. Like, come on, let's get a new pope. Let's free the mass again. Let's expand it. Let's do what we need to do. I mean, it is expanding despite Francis's efforts to crush it. So, anyway, okay. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we are the laity, and we will not be silent.